Hello and welcome to the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition. I'm Nick.
And I'm Spencer. We're both designers, but not the kind of designers you're probably thinking of right now. We're actually design thinkers, which means we apply design techniques to solve real problems.
And we're working with Samsung and Digital Catapult to deliver design thinking sessions. So it's great to be here today at the start of your journey to give you an introduction to design thinking and how you can use it within your application. Design thinking, what on earth is it?
Design thinking, also known as human-centered design, is a powerful practice for identifying and solving genuine problems that people actually have. It's an approach to innovation that uses processes and tools from the design world to make creative leaps in the real world. In this video, we're going to show you exactly what design thinking is, why it's important to use, and how you can use the tools and techniques to help you solve any problem.
Our aim is to guide you and introduce the process so you can use it when designing your tech solution for the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition, and also talk about your design thinking process within your application form. Before we jump into how to use design thinking, let's first talk about what it actually is and why it's important. Design thinking is a process and a mindset. It's something that we can all use because anyone who comes up with a solution for a problem is a designer. The process part is something we'll talk about later, so let's first learn and understand the designer's mindsets. Understanding how designers think and talk will inform our understanding of how designers work and help us to adopt design best practices for solving human problems. Here are the 6 principles every designer should stick to. Focus on human values. Identify a real user pain point and ground your solutions in their needs. Radical collaboration. Diversity of backgrounds and viewpoints enables breakthroughs to happen. Be visual. Bring ideas to life with drawings, sketches, and graphics. Bias towards action. Designers think by doing. Learn to prototype so you can prototype to learn. Defer judgment. No ideas are bad ideas. Imagine first, evaluate afterwards. Embrace experimentation. The best way to learn is to experiment. Testing our assumptions is the only way to truly know. This all sounds fine, but why should you use design thinking? The answer is actually pretty simple. Did you know that most businesses fail because the solution, the product or service, didn't solve a real problem that users actually had? Nobody bought or used it because they didn't need it. Design thinking is the best approach to reduce this risk. Design thinking creates a natural flow from research to rollout. Truly understanding customer and user pain points and problems helps us gather insights, which are then used to create lots of ideas. The ideas are really just assumptions, but they allow us to make prototypes that we can then test in the real world with experiments to see if they will actually work, long before wasting time and money building something before we know even if it will work. So design thinking enables us to minimize the risk of any new idea by ensuring it solves a real problem and people will want your solution.
Now that we understand how to think and talk like a designer, the designer's mindset, we can start to look at how to work like a designer using the design thinking process. Design thinking is a 5-step creative process. The rest of this video will explain each of the 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. While each of the steps is useful on its own, combining all 5 steps helps us deliver the most impactful solutions. While the design thinking process looks linear, one step followed by another, the reality is that it will often look more like this, a messy, cyclical flow that often looks like we're going backwards. But that's okay, because we're constantly getting more clarity, so we may need to revisit some of those earlier stages at any time. No problem is too big or small for design thinking. We can use this process to tackle problems at home, at work, in our community, and much, much more. I even planned a wedding ceremony using design thinking. Let's look at some projects that use design thinking to go from idea to successful rollout.
HyperCRC was a recent project run by Digital Catapult that used design thinking to solve a challenging problem. Visualizing spaces like hotel lobbies and aircraft interiors usually takes up a huge amount of time, space, and material, making it difficult for architects and designers to understand how the space will work for customers. To test how this could be improved, they prototyped a new approach using a mix of virtual and real spaces, using airline seats, tables, and chairs with electronic trackers on them. They conducted testing with real companies coming into their lab to find out how it could be improved and how it would actually be used in their company. What they found is there's a real need for lots of companies for this product in the construction industry and even space travel.
Design thinking is used in all industries, including at Samsung, to create innovative product solutions that overcome barriers. Let's take, for example, the Samsung Galaxy Note smartphone. It was the first phone to combine the characteristics of a smartphone and a tablet, transforming the phone into a digital note-taking experience with the S Pen. Over the years, Samsung has continually evolved the Note and the S Pen, speaking to customers to find out how they interact with the phone, what the barriers to using the S Pen might be, and how it could be improved to ensure everybody is able to get the very best experience. Through customer research, Samsung found that with previous iterations of the S Pen, customers had to unlock the phone in the traditional way and go to the Notes app before they could start writing, designing, and drawing. Samsung wanted to improve the customer journey by making it as frictionless as possible so that people could quickly create a note without unlocking, ensuring people never missed a moment. So they developed the Screen Lock Note on the Note 8, which when you pulled out the pen, it brought you immediately to a black and white note-taking screen. They also developed an endless scrolling feature, essentially an infinite piece of paper on the phone, meaning you never missed an idea. The beauty of something like this is that prototyping it in the early stages could be really simple. Here's how I would have approached it. I'd create a paper prototype, a short storyboard demonstrating the user journey, showing each interaction with the phone and the pen. I'd then test it with existing device users, as well as those not currently using the S Pen, to make sure it meets the needs and wants of the customers. By using design thinking in this project, Samsung were able to reduce the number of steps needed to start using the pen to just one.
Empathy is the basis of design thinking. As human beings, we connect deeply with the needs of others and the challenges our communities face. Sometimes the problems we want to solve are familiar to us, but we might not have had the direct experience of the problems. There's a saying that's important to remember: you are not your users. For many of us, this is a mantra that forces us to keep building empathy for our users by learning about their values and needs, rituals and behaviours, likes and dislikes, hopes and fears, and much more. We must gather as many perspectives as possible using a variety of tools and techniques to generate the insight we need for later in the process. In order to empathise with users, we can research. Look for existing solutions and inspiring ideas out in the world. Remain truly curious about both familiar and unfamiliar circumstances in order to come up with original ideas to problems that are not currently being met. Interview. Interact with users through short and long-form encounters. Ask questions to learn about and absorb the user's perspective. Observe. View users and their behaviours in the context of their lives without judgment. Immerse. Wear our users' shoes. Experience what they experience for a mile or two, or maybe even a kilometre or two, depending on what they're more familiar with. One thing to remember: just because you might have completed this phase, you should never stop thinking about your users and trying to deepen your empathy for them.
When you feel that you have enough data about your users for now, it's time to transition from looking backward to looking forward. In the define phase, we move from observing the real world around us to describing future possibilities. This means we should now take the information we gathered from our research, users and experts to make informed insights and identify a direction forward. The output of this stage of the process is to define the specific problems with a problem statement and start thinking about what we might do to solve these problems. In order to define problems, we can craft insights, cluster learnings from research, identify patterns and highlight important findings, identify a point of view, specify where you want to have an impact and the scope of our design, write how might we questions, prepare prompts for gathering ideas that align with your point of view. To see how this works in practice, let's look at what the design stage looked like for this video. Insight. Coming up with a good idea that solves a real problem is really hard. Point of view. Samsung's Solve for Tomorrow entrants need to understand exactly how to create a solution to real problems in order to have the best chance of their idea being successful and winning the competition. How might we get people motivated, inspired to have a go and enter the competition? How might we quickly give them an understanding of why design thinking is useful and how it works? How might we encourage them to use design thinking? And how might we keep people engaged?
It's only now that we've understood our users' problems and challenges, generated insights and points of view, and defined the problems we want to solve, that we should start coming up with concrete solutions. Ideation requires two models of thinking. Firstly, creative. This is where you come up with as many different solutions to the problem as possible. Secondly, analytical, where you start to analyse the possible solutions to agree on which ones we should focus on for the next stage. These stages should always be kept separate. Remember the principle from earlier. No ideas are bad ideas. Imagine first, evaluate after. Brainstorming is a great way to come up with multiple ideas in a team setting, but that's not always possible to do. So one technique that we can use is Crazy Eights. Crazy Eights is a technique where you come up with 8 ideas in as little as 8 minutes. It's called Crazy Eights because that's not much time at all and it can get a little crazy. To do it, just take a piece of paper and fold it in half 3 times like this. Then use the 8 panes to draw your 8 ideas. Someone with a phone or timer should set the timer to 8 minutes and then you go. You'll have 1 minute per sketch. Imagine a team of 4 people doing this. You'd be generating 32 fresh ideas in 8 minutes. How cool is that? Again, don't worry about the ideas at this stage. They might not seem very good to start with, but when you start to share them and talk about them, sometimes those crazy ideas turn out to be the best ones.
The aim of the prototype phase is to make our ideas tangible so that we can learn whether they will work for real. There are lots of different types of prototypes that we can create, but often the simplest are the best, especially in the early stages of your project. Prototypes could be in the form of stories. Tell a plausible story about how the concept will come to life in a real use case. A storyboard is a great way to tell the story. Paper prototype. Sketch initial concepts on paper to make the idea visible. Digital prototype. Design logos, wireframes, or simple screen layouts that give a sense of how the screens of an app or website could flow. Physical prototype. Make a physical model to test how a mechanism might work. It's important to prototype even at the early stages to get an idea of what your solution might look like and how it might work practically. Remember, learn to prototype, prototype to learn. Don't worry if at the beginning the prototypes don't look perfect. They're just a rough sketch or something you've created in Figma or PowerPoint.
While testing might be the final step of the design thinking process, it's probably the most important. Prototypes only represent our best thinking to date, so putting them to the test with users and experts allows us to see any issues, challenges, or false assumptions that we didn't see before. It's our way of learning if the solution we've worked on actually solves the original problem we've discovered during step one. It's important to remember, though, that tests are only indicators about the success or failure of our solutions. Often we need to do multiple tests to really validate our ideas. Sharing and testing prototypes with users can feel similar to conducting empathy interviews. The need to build rapport and to let users lead remains the same, but testing prototypes with users is more focused than our initial interviews. We should have a clearly defined set of questions that we want to test with users. It may not be possible to get to the test phase at this early stage of your ideation, and that's okay. But some examples of questions you may want to think about when you get to this point are: is it clear for the user how they will benefit from your product? Do users understand when and how to interact with your prototype? Is it simple enough to use? Have you made the right assumptions about the user journey?
We've covered a lot of information in this video.
The key things to remember are: design thinking is a process and a mindset. Following the process is one thing, but to become great at it, try to think like a designer. Design thinking is a great way to build out an idea, ensuring it solves an actual problem a user has.
It uses the 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype and test with any projects to minimize the risks and maximize the potential for success. We've covered a huge amount in a very short amount of time. Are you ready to develop your own design thinking skills?
Then why not get started on your very own idea to enter into Samsung's Solve for Tomorrow?